I want to know what that experience of quote unquote coming out of the closet is like, and because help me understand it and help our viewers who don't struggle with same-sex attraction understand that. Like that I can see why that must feel liberating.
Yeah. Well, I met with a priest actually, and based off like our conversation, he was a type of priest. He's no longer a priest actually. He derobed. I don't know what it's called, but he's gave it up. He's actually married to a woman now. But he basically, that conversation with him sealed in what I wanted.
Yeah.
But it didn't take away the fact that I knew what I wanted didn't align with what I knew to be true. Oof. But what I will tell you, even when I was driving home from that conversation with him, it was about 2 hours. We were both crying, right?
The priest? Mm-hmm. You and the priest. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Drive home.
Why is he crying?
I think he, in a way, and I do. I grew up knowing him, like he was a family friend priest.
Okay.
I believe he did care for me.
Gotcha.
And I think sometimes we take on human forms of compassion instead of the compassion of Christ that actually is going to suffer through things. And I think there was a distortion there, and he was in a way bearing my burden, but his response, his basically answer to my burden is where it went wrong. He started to bear it. He felt the pain I was feeling, and I felt that from him. But then he tried to solve it. And he tried to solve it without sticking to Christ and the way Christ heals us, right? And so for me, that's where it went rogue. And so for me, I'm driving home, and I remember, like seriously, I remember seeing the sunset a way I'd never seen it. And I thought, okay, God's affirming this. Like I'm seeing color again. It sounds so weird,
but
I know
what that feels like.
I felt like I'm seeing color again. Like this is the right move. And see, we got to be aware Satan is always at work, right? And so God is the one who showed the sunshine, the way it was going, and the color that I could see now. But where I think now it was, I believe God was celebrating that I was being real. I believe he was like, thank you for coming out of hiding. Thank you for bringing this forth. I don't want you to live a life of repression like you were. There's a big difference between celebrating it and repressing it, right? And so for me, I believe there was a celebration from God of like, thank you for not feeling like you have to keep this in. I do not believe he was celebrating what I was going to choose to do with that. So I ended up, coming out, told my family.
What was that experience like?
They already knew, to be honest. My mom had questioned. She had asked me, throughout my young life, like, Kim, do you have an attraction to women? I'm like,
asking, they're like, if you say yes, it's gonna be totally
it's okay.
Just please be honest with me.
Like, no thanks, Mom. Like it's like having that sex talk with your parents. I know it's probably a good thing to do.
Yeah.
It's awkward, uncomfortable. Yeah. And again, she wasn't safe to me because if I feel like, that doesn't mean it's true, but I feel like had I shared, yes, Mom, I do, I would have gotten the whole like laundry list of what to avoid, how to overcome this, what not to do, what to do, instead of just holding me and crying with me. Well, what's that going to do for anyone? A lot, actually, a lot. It's just safe to be where you're at without it being celebrated.
Keep talking. What's your advice for parents
just
whose children come out to them like this?
Meet your kid where they're at. That doesn't mean you have to like celebrate it, but you can celebrate them. You can celebrate the one that God gave you to raise up on this earth without celebrating everything they do. Can you just not talk for a second? See, here's the thing. I already knew what my mom believed. I didn't believe that was going to change because I now had same-sex attraction and was going to live in this. Her truth was not going to change based on my decisions.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
That's not easy to now live in, right? For me, like my mom doesn't agree with my lifestyle, but I didn't need to hear from her every day that she didn't agree with me.
Yes.
And that it was wrong and that it was sin. I already knew that. And she knew that I knew that. But it's kind of like sometimes we kind of drill it in so much. And that's usually when people start just pushing away. It's like, I don't want to hear it. Because reality is, if you were raised to know God, even if there was a twist or a tweak or a distortion, you know it's wrong.
Yes.
And like, I know it's wrong more than you do, Mom, because I'm actually doing it. Right? So it's like saying you get drunk. The person who's drunk and feels it the next day feels it more than the person's like, you shouldn't have got drunk. It's bad for you.
Yeah.
Well, no crap. Like I feel it. And so I was experiencing the wages of sin, right? So I didn't need anyone else to.
Isn't that a wonderful statement? The wages of sin, because the wage is something you give to somebody who's working for you. And it's what's owed you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was exchanging with. I was exchanging with sin. I was exchanging with a life that Christ did not pay for me. He paid to overcome that within me. And so, and that is just hard. And I just think there's so much, and I think to meditate on that, sit with the Lord, ask Holy Spirit, like, what does it look like to bear burden with the person I love? My daughter who came out, my son who is an alternative lifestyle, something that is not the way that God has for him. How do I bear this with them, Lord? How do you bear it with me? Because see, we get so jacked up in this like, oh my gosh, homosexuality. Okay, there is so much sin around us. And when we talk about another sin, it doesn't minimize the other. When I say that there's heterosexual sin, that's not me condoning or minimizing homosexual sin. Right. But we tend to, like, around homosexuality, it's like the lepers of the time. You're so much more sinful. And do you know how hard that is? Like, to be the person that is struggling, or maybe not even admitting that they're struggling, but maybe internally struggling, and seeing other people sin and yours just be pointed at and highlighted.
Oh, this is good. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and subscribe.